He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us here on Coast Vue. This is the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi a great place to live, work, and play. And as we've been doing now for the past 3 weeks, we're focused on bringing people to the show that can help us sort of understand the current situation we're in. As we've discussed so many times before, just like with a hurricane, there's preparation, there's response, and then there's an aftermath. And we're sort of in this elongated response situation. And I'm proud today to be able to tell you that I've got a couple of really good guests. First is Vincent Creel, the Public Affairs Manager for the City of Biloxi. And in the second half of the show, we'll have John McFarland, who is involved in Red Cross here in Southeast Mississippi. And he has an important conversation about the work the Red Cross is doing today, and one I think you need to hear, and hopefully you will pay attention to it. So anyway, Vincent, good morning.
Good morning, Ricky. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you, buddy. So Vincent is not someone who is thrilled about Skype, but you mastered it. So you look fine today, Vincent.
It's good for government work, let me say that. But there's also a sense of pride in making sure that we do a good job and represent the city well. And man, it sounds like old home week with John McFarland coming on.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm glad to have. Yeah, no, you know, of course, right. Vincent and I used to work together. He back in the days when he was probably one of the best marquee editors we've ever had at the Sun Herald. He was the go-to guy for what was happening in the entertainment area of coastal Mississippi. And you've been with the city how long now?
Right at 25 years, and it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, you've seen a lot in those years. And, you know, who would have thought when we talked not long ago when you joined FOFO for my session with FOFO that we would be in a situation like we're in today? It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing that when you look back in our lives, all of the unprecedented things that we have encountered, going back to Camille, going back to Katrina, going back to the BP oil spill, and it just goes on, the Bonnie Carey spillway. When you look back at all of the things that we have encountered, not just you and I, but Biloxians and coastal Mississippians in general, all of the things that we've encountered, I think they prepare us for where we are right now. And as we talk about, you know, the state of emergency, and as we talk about the shelter in place, you hit the nail on the head just now when you said it's just like a hurricane. And that's what we keep trying to tell people. We've been through something like this before, and there's no reason we can't get through this as long as we use common sense. And today, Ricky, we're looking at the governor's order from yesterday, where it's pretty much shelter in place, and we're comparing it to what we already had in place. Here in Biloxi, we're going to a curfew that begins at 11 o'clock tonight, and it carries through to 5 in the morning tomorrow. So people are asking, well, can I do this or can I do that? The most important thing is, and it's been your consistent message on this program, stay at home. If you do not have to travel, don't go. No social gatherings. We don't need that today. And it's just common sense.
It is common sense. And it's unfortunately, it could be that their lives of their friends and family members depend upon it. I mean, this is a global pandemic. It's a very serious situation. And one of the important messages that I continue to try to communicate, and you know this really well, I thought when you were on the show last, it was just beginning to be an issue. We were just beginning to understand what this curve was all about and why we needed to focus on the apex of the curve and how it intersected with the medical capabilities in our community, et cetera. But now, you know, we're at the part of the curve that's beginning to grow. We sort of understood that was going to be the case. I think some people hoped it wouldn't be the case, but it is. Mm-hmm. And now it's time for us to really hunker down and do everything in our power to keep 6 foot distance from others and do all the things we need to do. Hey, Vincent, just because believe it or not, there may be some people still just now getting, holy mackerel, this is real. Go back through the kind of basic things they need to do.
The basic things that we're asking you to do is prepare just like you would for a hurricane. And we use that analogy because it's something that people are familiar with. And, you want to make sure that you have the provisions you need at home. You want to make sure that you've got a plan. Okay, what happens if this closes? What happens if I can't do that? Have a plan on what you're going to do for your family, for you personally, for your business. And if you're uncomfortable about going to work, let your employer know. You just have to know that there's some compassion out there. The number of calls that we get here at the City of Biloxi that's one of the big things they want to know when they call the mayor's office. I'm uncomfortable going to work. What do I do? I'm not talking about city employees. I'm talking about in general. And what we're telling them, our best advice to them is talk to your employer. Let them know if you're uncomfortable. We have to believe that there will be some compassion and understanding there. The other thing is, can my ball team still practice? No, your ball team cannot still practice. If it's a social gathering, don't do it. You have no, and by the way, Ricky, one other thing, a lot of people get hung up on this 10, no more than 10 or above. We say there's no reason for any group at all. None.
Right.
You don't need to do it. Don't do it. Those are the biggest things. Listen to programs like this. Listen to your local media. Watch the credible sites, such as Mississippi State Department of Health, such as the Centers for Disease Control. There have been some great things that have come out, some good advice for people.
One of the things I noticed, I go on long bike rides. That's kind of one of the ways I stay healthy. And yesterday I rode through a couple of neighborhoods, and I saw several children gathered together, riding their bikes, going through the neighborhood and whatever. In one case, maybe 5 or 6 together. And I think it's important to make sure that parents know that whoever your kid is socializing with, if you're letting them go do that, then that kid is socializing with someone who you don't know who they've been in contact with. And when they get in contact with them, they're going to bring whatever that is back into your home. And I've repeatedly said, you have repeatedly said, that we're only as good, we're only as strong, only as safe as the weakest link in our family. We can't overemphasize that, can we, Vincent?
No, not at all. I've heard you say that every single day. So It's the most important thing. Be smart. Think about these things. Treat it just like you would a hurricane. I cannot stress that enough. Now, we're working through some answers today. And the answers today that we're working through are this. Okay, we know the beach is closed. The governor has said the beach is closed. However, you got to think of the boardwalk next to it. You got to think of the walking path that goes across the Biloxi Bay Bridge. These are all answers that we are going to be communicating to people today. Here are the things you must know. Now, what they're doing in a lot of grocery stores now is they are saying you can only have X number of people in the store. What we've been doing in Biloxi is saying that let's remember we don't want people of groups in 10 inside of a store. Well, now what the common rule is you don't want, say, more than 50 people in a grocery store. So what's happened is you're seeing people line up outside of a grocery store. We don't want that. We want people to be spaced apart. That is the biggest thing here. We're not looking at 10 people. We're not looking at this. We're looking at that. We are looking at what can prevent the spread of this disease. That is the bottom line.
It is the bottom line. So if you go, just a couple of other things when we're on the subject. If you go to the store, just be aware that whatever you touch, you could touch something that has this disease on it. If it gets on your hand and you touch your face, that's an issue. So it's, just don't touch your face. And as soon as you possibly can, wash your hands rigorously. And, Germ-X and other products really can help with that. These are all these basic things. People need to ultimately go to the sites that they trust and find out specifically what they need to do. Because the one thing they failed to learn may be the thing they needed to know that could make the difference in whether a vulnerable family member ends up with this or not. Anything else on that subject before we move on? Yeah.
Whatever this curfew is enacted at 11 o'clock tonight, what that means is we do not want people outside of their house. We do not want people on the roads. What the police will be doing tonight is they've developed what in the past had been a beach patrol, to where they were making sure we did not have crowds on the beach. Now they're going to be making sure we don't have people at all on the beach. The other thing they're doing is they're using this time to patrol those businesses that have been temporarily closed. Now, while the police are out tonight between 11 and 5, if they see somebody out on the road, they're going to pull them over. They're going to want to know what you're doing, where you're going. And this is all foreign to us because, quite frankly, you look at that big three: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And your pursuit of happiness is going to have to be at your home. That's where your pursuit of happiness is.
Let's do this. We'll re-emphasize that when we come back from the break. We have Vincent Creel, who's the Public Information Affairs Officer for the City of Biloxi, and we'll continue the conversation after this break.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, "Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast."
Here in Mississippi, we're known for our hospitality. Getting together with friends and showing affection is a big part of who we are. And now, it's time to stop. At least for a little while. You can help slow the coronavirus by staying home as much as possible. Avoid social gatherings and avoid all unnecessary travel. The simple act of just staying put could go a long way. The coronavirus is here, so Mississippi, let's get serious about stopping it. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. As you know, we're doing these shows remotely. Cal, for the Facebook and YouTube followers, shows the kind of lonesome chair back there at the station. But anyway, I'm working from my office at my house, and Vincent is, I guess, at his office. There's not a lot of people at that office today, are there? It's the City Hall.
We've been pretty full staff with the city, and from what I understand, it's been about 4 or 5% of our 650 employees. We're still where everybody's expected to show up for work, and we believe that that's important for the public to see that we, as public servants, are still on the job. You need to see your police officer, your firefighter out there.
Yeah, no question about that, and it's good to see that, and you're able to use your common sense and your personal responsibility to make sure you're doing what you need to do to stay safe. So why don't let's before we move too far away from that, you were saying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you were making the point that people need to pursue their happiness at home until we get it all clear. Finish that thought a little bit.
Well, the big thing is a lot of people overlook that a lot. They want to ask government, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? And what we're asking people to do right now is forget common sense. Let's talk about personal responsibility. You have a responsibility to your family. You have a responsibility to your coworkers. You have a responsibility to yourself to make sure that you are doing the things that you are supposed to be doing. We use that hurricane analogy so much, but the difference here is where people have the disconnect is, well, I can't see it. I don't know where it is. Well, just know that you're getting this advice, and it's coming from the authorities, the medical and healthcare authorities. So we've labored that point, and we're going to continue to belabor that point to make sure that everybody knows it. Personal responsibility.
And before we move too much further, I just want to remind everybody, and you and I have had this conversation before, one of the benefits of having gone through Katrina is that we have it built into our DNA that we're very resilient. No matter how long this elongated sort of response moment is, we'll get on the other side of this and we'll start moving forward again. And we're so darn resilient. We'll help find ways to help those who need help in the aftermath of this, and we'll rebuild our economy pretty rapidly. and life will get back to normal as quickly as we possibly can. And we're lucky that we have that experience, that we know we have that, that DNA in us. That's the way you see it as well, isn't it, Vincent?
That's exactly the way I see it. That in someone's infinite wisdom, they prepared us for this moment in our life on how we would be able to deal with this. And that's all we got to remember is our background. And we want to show our children and our grandchildren how you get through something like this, how you do it in the right way. And quite frankly, we owe that to our ancestors too, the people who went through all the hurricanes and everything else in the past. We want to show them that, yes, we can follow through on that trend. And yes, just another unprecedented disaster is what it is.
Hey, Vincent, I wanted to share something with you. Ashley Edwards from the Coast Business Council posted this morning a study. It was written by two guys, one from the Federal Reserve and the other from MIT. And what it was an analysis of the 1918 pandemic. And it talked about lots of things. And essentially what it said is the impact of what they called non-pharmaceutical PNI, non-pharmaceutical intervention, which is essentially all the things that we're doing now to create social distancing and sheltering at home and all of that. And the good thing about this study was there's a lot of parallels you can find in it, but essentially what it said is this: we're going to come back. Economically, we're going to come back, especially by locking down and by suppressing the number of people who ultimately capture this. It gives us the opportunity to get on the other side of it more rapidly and enable the economy to start coming back faster. So it is an unprecedented moment that we find ourselves in, but we can go back in our history and see that people do come out of pandemics and life does get back to normal again. As difficult as that may be for some people to see, there's history for us to look at to understand kind of what we're going to experience today. We will get through this. So Vincent, any point about that before we move on?
Yeah, as far as getting through this, I want to say something, and you're either going to say in a few weeks from now, what an idiot he was. What I want to say is I don't think not only we're going to get through it, but I think it's going to be like after Katrina, where say like 8 months from now, we're going to see record-breaking revenue. I'm telling you right now, we are going to see that. We saw it after Katrina, and you just hit something where you go back and you look in your history and you see what happened to know what's going to happen in the future. And I'm telling you right now, I was telling the man that yesterday. I said, mark my words, we're going to have a record-breaking year. Here's an interesting thing. John Harrison and I talked this week. He's the CEO of Hancock Whitney. And what we talked about a lot of different things, but one of the things that's really important, and that is the banking community across the United States, because of the requirements to capitalize. Essentially what this means is all the provisions that were put onto them after the 2008 bust, all those federally mandated provisions have made their balance sheet, their financial standing so strong. So they go into this with incredible cash, liquidity. Then you've got the Federal Reserve creating more liquidity. And then you've got the effort by the federal government to create a recovery aspect, the $2 trillion bill they passed. And banks that are really solid are right in the middle of the SBA and small business. The efforts is going to be underway to help small business recover, to help them get back on their feet again. It's literally going to be unprecedented. And the impact that it has on creating a surge in the economy that you're talking about is very significant. So I hope you're right about that. I think all the pieces are in place to be able to create that. So let's hope so, right? Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Just look at our history. That's what tells you what's going to happen. And people should have some confidence in that, and that should bring them some satisfaction. And we just got to keep the resolve that we have.
Yes. Okay. So Vincent, before we get away from this, I want to note something about you, because when I was at the Sun Herald, I could follow this in all the different communities, and there were good communicators here and there within the municipalities across the coast. But yours was always consistently really good, with a newsletter, with what you're doing on your website, with, you can talk about Biloxi TV. All the efforts that you have underway to be able to communicate with the citizens of Biloxi, I think there's something there for the citizens of Biloxi to learn, but other cities may be able to take something away from this conversation as well. So why don't you quickly kind of give a sense of what your goals are?
I'm going to give a quick idea of what we do and why we do it. And what we're doing right now is we're trying to use as many platforms as we can to communicate with the citizens of Biloxi. Obviously, we had a website for the longest time, which is at biloxi.ms.us. And when you go to that website, there I go touching my face. When you go to that website, there's a little thing at the bottom of it that says, click here to sign up for B-mail. Now, what B-mail is and let's equate it to the newspaper. What the website is the website is that newspaper rack out there on the street corner. What B-mail is home delivery, where you get this newsletter from the city online 2 or 3 times a week with news you need. We're on all the social platforms, City of Biloxi, as well as Biloxi Police Department, Biloxi Fire Department, Biloxi Visitor Center. And then we have a YouTube page where we've been filming videos with the mayor. You hit on something that we started here a while back, and it's called BTV, because we wanted to have a community, a government access channel, where I still think, Ricky, that we have some older people who don't go online, who don't look at the things, email, etc. So we developed, in addition to the little TV government community channel, we developed a monthly newsletter that we've been doing about 2 years now. It goes to every single mailbox in Biloxi. What we're trying to do is make sure that people know what's going on in their city. We're also using these tools to educate people about the history of our city so they will appreciate the culture, the diversity, and all the things that make our city great. And along those lines, let me get a quick plug in right now. We had this month the 50th anniversary of Apollo 13. Now, you want to talk about a challenge and overcoming a challenge like the one we're in right now. You put 3 people in a small space capsule way halfway to the moon, and they worked their way back safely to Earth. To think that we had somebody from amongst us, Fred Hayes, who was one of the key players in Apollo 13, this coming up, April 11th, is the 50th anniversary of Apollo 13. So we put together a couple documentaries about Fred Hayes, where he tells the inside story of Apollo 13 in one of them, and the other one he tells about growing up in Biloxi and how he achieved his goals.
Yeah, I've actually had communication with Fred, and he's looking forward to being on the show after all these festivities are done. I can't wait to tell his story. So, Vincent, we're getting to the end of the show, but in the last minute that we have, make one last plea to the citizens of Mississippi.
What we want people to do is be smart. What we want people to do is use common sense. Have some personal responsibility. Your government is telling you that this is a dangerous situation that we're in, but we can get through it if we're all prudent, if we all do the right things. And the right things are not that hard. Stay home. Don't gap.
Yeah. So, Vincent, it's great to have you on the show. What we're going to do is we'll come back to you in a week or two to check in with you. Right after this break, we'll talk to John McFarland from the Red Cross.
Thank you, Ricky.
You bet.
Subscribe for free to the Coast Vue podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.